Jim just called me and he told me that we're being asked to make sure we mute for.
Behind me, I do have a flag, so we can do a flag salute. You can see it back there on the wall.
Good job, Scott.
So I'll start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the Board of Education minutes from March 9th, 2020 as presented. May I have a motion? Joanna, second.
Randy?
Randy. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, raise your hand. And everybody, all approved. Okay, on to administrators report. We shuffled that up till now, so I will look to Kimberly for that.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to begin this evening with a huge heartfelt thank you to all of our faculty, staff, the administrative team for organizing collaborative learning outside of the traditional classroom, as well as all the preparation and delivery of food to our school community over this past 2 weeks. As I communicated earlier in the week to our entire faculty, we have completed 2 very successful weeks of this new educational journey. We've set the bar pretty high, and in my opinion, we've exceeded those expectations. I've expressed numerous times before, and I'll continue to state, I'm really honored and proud to lead Trumansburg with this exceptional faculty and staff. I want to remind folks at home, if they haven't already, to check out the link on our website. Pam Raposa put together an amazing video showing some of the work that our students are experiencing at home. I hope in the coming weeks we can also capture some of the transportation and food service work that has been going on as well. For those families that are experiencing new needs in terms of food distribution, I want to remind you that because of the COVID-19 situation, you are eligible to receive food distribution. So go to our website. There is a phone number and an extension there. All you have to do is leave your name, number of meals that you require, and we'll make certain that we get food to your home. And we anticipate in the days and weeks that come that we will see an uptick in the number of families needing that service. So feel free to let us know of that need. We want to be certain to take care of all of you. Additionally, I'll just give you a few updates since I'm on right now. Some of the important updates that have been coming out over the weekend and even today. There is a new executive order from Governor Cuomo that postpones the budget vote and board elections to June 1st of this year. I'll keep you apprised of any new budget timelines as I learn them. Everything seems to be unfolding in 12 to 24-hour increments. So anything I say tonight could easily change by tomorrow morning. Also, you may be aware the governor's executive order has extended the school-wide closure until April 15th. We're required to maintain continuity of instruction, student meals, and emergency childcare during that closure. I'm working with the TTA union in particular to reach an agreement that would allow us to receive the full benefit from the waiver of the 180-day requirement. I anticipate that I will hear more on this topic from the state level Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. School construction update, you may have heard this as well. The Empire State Development issued guidance prohibiting all non-essential construction except for emergency construction. However, school districts may have some flexibility to continue some construction projects as local governments are exempt from this business restriction or from the essential business restriction. Again, I'm waiting on further clarification on that. I do have a meeting tomorrow with our architect, some of our contractors, as well as our building manager. Again, that guidance seems to be changing. On Friday, we had heard that schools were not exempt from that. And on today, just this afternoon, I heard that we may be exempt from that. As you are likely aware, we were to begin construction on Wednesday, April 1st. So we really need some clarification on that very soon. And I think that is all I have in terms of updates for the time being. I will keep you posted. I have been putting updates on the website at least once weekly. As information changes, I'll be certain to put it there. So for our general community, if you're looking for information, if you don't have children within the district, that's a good place, a good landing place to go and get that latest update.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody have a brief question for Kimberly before I move on? Okay. Agenda changes. There was some just sent out around just before 5:30. Hopefully you all saw those. Are there any others? Anybody? No. Okay. On to awards and recognition. Acceptance of resignation. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby accepts the resignation as presented. And you all have those in your packet. Motion. Somebody raise their hand. Becky, and then Diane second. Any discussions or comments? I will make one. This is an incredible group that is retiring. None less than 20 years, some as much as 37 years, dedicated employees, and they will be greatly missed. All those in favor of accepting these resignations? And all in favor? Okay, on to presentations. We have Matthew giving the budget estimates number 3 for 2021. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew. You should all have gotten the PowerPoint, so hopefully you're able to look at that as well. Matt, unmute yourself, Matthew.
You hear me?
Yep, now we can.
All right, I had it all set, and then just as I was okay, there we go. Let me just pull up my presentation, and then I'll share the screen. Apologies, folks. Okay, you good? You guys see the presentation?
Yes.
You guys see it? Okay. So this is what we'll be looking at tonight for 2021 budget projections. We get to some of the categories that we have not yet covered. Tonight is the third of 3 on the expense projections, budget estimates for next fiscal year, and we'll go through each of them kind of one by one for each slide. So beginning with the instructional or the 2110 function, we'll start with this one. And following the same presentation format as in my earlier presentations, I'd like to take a quick moment to just orient to the slide again. And all the following slides will remain consistent, of course. The columns from left to right show last year's final expense, the current year's adopted budget, the current year's projected expense through June 30, and the next column highlighted in that darker color on these slides is the 2021 budget projection. The far right column represents any variance versus the current year budget. So variance is going to be obviously the 2021 estimated budget less the 1920 adopted budget. So instructional, this includes all regular education teachers, monitors, teacher aides. It includes sub costs as well. The first row, certified staff, we are projecting a budget increase in 2021 of about $50,000. This includes the addition of a middle school CTE position, a 1.0 full-time equivalent, or FTE. Additionally, it includes an increase of a 0.5 FTE for the high school French teacher position or LOTE position. In one of the upcoming slides, I will summarize these program enhancements to avoid any confusion, hopefully. So we will revisit this part of it in greater detail here in just a few moments. The next row down, support staff or the non-certified staff, which includes the regular education aides and monitors throughout each of the 3 schools. And as you can see, we are projecting a budget increase here of almost $190,000 in 2021. You can see in that far right figure. This figure assumes the district ratifies the currently expired contract, support staff contract, in which we remain hopeful will get done sooner rather than later. And the jump here in expenses really is seen in the current year, in the 1920 projected expenses column. So, you know, of course, assuming that we get the support staff, those increases taken care of before the end of the year. So represented in the 2021 budget column for the non-certified staff includes this year's expenses, of course, at the ratified rates, and then we apply an already or previously proposed increase on top of that 1920 projected expense figure. That's how we arrive at the 2021 budget figure there. You know, as we've implied throughout these budget presentations, personnel costs are the single largest expense item in public school budgets. Those two couple rows there will remind us of that reality. Just taking a look at those 2 increases. The next few rows in instructional, looking at equipment, contractual expenses, and materials and supplies. No major changes from the current year budget, a few smaller adjustments, but these items allow our teachers, aides, and monitors to have the educational resources that they require within their classrooms. The equipment line is earmarked primarily for STEM-related equipment. Those are bigger ticket items with a minimum unit cost of $5,000. So once it gets over that 5K mark, it's no longer material supply. It's classified separately as equipment. So moving into the second part of the instructional, and there are more budget categories within the instructional function than in other budget functions, thus requiring the 2 separate slides in order to capture all of them. This is the only function where we had to kind of do a 2-parter. But just beginning there at the top, textbook expenses. This 2021 budget amount matches what the state has allocated to us in the executive budget proposal on the revenue side for textbooks. So we simply allocate those figures, which again, that projected expense amount is exactly the same on the revenue side as it is here on the expense side. And as I was saying, we allocate those figures to each building based on their enrollments respectively. Tuition, the next one down, this is to account for those students who attend a charter school, in our case, Newburgh, because I have that bullet point there towards the bottom. Effectively building in an inflationary tuition increase for 2021. That's the $5,000 increase there. The last row, the BOCES, services line here within the instructional function. I want to dive into this one just a little further. As you can see in that far right column, we are projecting a budget decrease for next fiscal. I have highlighted some of the BOCES services that we allocate towards the instructional function with respect to BOCES services. PTech, model schools, arts and education, those are some of the notable services that we contract with BOCES there. But the primary reason for the decrease in this particular budget category is the removal of the 0.6 FTE, the itinerant home and career position. So the cost savings is approximately $71,000 in 2021. That's using 1920 figures, make it approximate. Anyways, it's about 71,000, and that's why we were able to decrease that area of the budget in 2021. So, but again, I'm going to summarize here in the very next slide some of these staff and program enhancements. So let me move on to that. So this slide serves, excuse me, to summarize our current plan with respect to program enhancements or staff changes in the 2021 school year. So we are moving to a 1.0 FTE in the middle school. As I stated earlier, a CTE position, career and technical education position. The 1.0 increase is offset by the 0.6 FTE decrease of that home and career itinerant position that was captured in the decrease of that BOCES line in the previous slide. When you contrast that arrangement along with the additional 0.5 FTE, you see that they're represented by the high school French position and the 1.0 FTE elementary school STEAM position. You can see that the net result is a 1.9 FTE increase in new positions in 2021. Now we have new positions, of course, that also means that all current instructional positions will be brought forward into the 2021 school year. And as noted in that very bottom bullet point, we do feel that these additions strike the most fiscally balanced approach between continuing to add educational opportunities for our students while minimizing the financial burden to our taxpaying residents. Moving to special education. So special education, sometimes referred to as SWD, students with disabilities. These costs capture all of our special education and our director of special education also, which is different from where we were charging that position prior years. But the second row, that captures each of our monitors and aides, but those who primarily work with our special education students in support of their classroom teachers. The two salary rows, those top two rows taken together, yields a net increase of about $13,000. See, the challenge from year to year is to staff our aides and monitors between those assisting our regular education population and our special education population. There are times within a school year that what we budgeted for doesn't materialize exactly, and we find we have to move aides and monitors from one, quote, discipline to another between the two. If adjustments are made within a school year, it is always based on student need, naturally, but our best projection at this point supports these figures for 2021 in special education. The contractual expense line, next row down, you will note the 1920 projected expense, and that did jump up this year. 358,000 is the number I'm referring to. That is in large part due to a one-time payment that we owed to a neighboring county, Schuyler County, for our share of that student's residential tuition costs that began in the 17-18 school year through the 18-19 school year. That one-time cost paid in arrears to that neighboring county, it cost us a little over $110,000 in this current school year. So we had to make good on that payment when the education that actually took place for that student. Those maintenance costs for that student began in the 17-18 year and through the 18-19. Without going into too many more details as to why this happened, all I can say is that there was some confusion with respect to the student as to which county that student was a resident of. And after everything was finally sorted out, it was determined that we did owe that neighboring county a percentage of that student's educational costs, room and board, etc. And that was the result. So we did make the payment after verifying all the relevant information, but that did sort of artificially inflate our special ed contractual numbers during the 1920 school year. Beyond that, the contractual expenses in special ed pay for services provided by the Francisca Racker Center, the Montessori School, and other OT, PT, speech therapy costs for these special ed students, just to name a few. That said, based on some of the recent historical expenses and in consultation with our special ed director, we felt it was reasonable to lower this budget amount by $10,000 for next fiscal. The other expenses listed here, no major changes, at least the next couple rows, some adjustments made. The tuition charges, we feel it is prudent to bring the same budget amount forward, given the unpredictable nature of these costs. It is better to allocate and not need these resources than the other way around. The BOCE service line, there is some activity there in that variance column. Also a little difficult to project with strong confidence special education BOCEs as changes happen within a school year. The student may or not be successful in their current educational setting, so we believe we should budget for those potential changes. The last couple of years, you can see those BOCE special education costs have come down, and therefore we have allocated our budget accordingly in 2021 by decreasing that budgeted amount by some 62, almost 62,000. But even so, that $62,000 decrease does include some margin, roughly 150,000 of margin, which is consistent with the district's past practice, historical practice, to build some margin in our special education line to account for those potential mid-year changes. All in all, we are projecting an overall decrease in the special education budget, as you can see in that far lower right number, 59,000. That's taking special ed in totality. Moving to the next areas of the budget, district office and central administration. So these expenses here include the district office staff, any board of education expenses, the business office, and the chief school administrator superintendent's costs. Not too much to note here in this slide. Salaries simply include contractual obligation increases. On the contractual materials and supplies lines, they're fairly flat from year to year, represent costs to operate the district office and board members as conference costs and the associated costs thereof, basically. That BOCES line, that lower line there is something to note here. You can see the increase of almost 39,000 in that far right column for BOCES. This is due primarily to the increased cost of the CBO, the Central Business Office, for which we contract services that include payroll, accounts payable, and district treasurer costs. A neighboring district within TST decided to decrease their CBO services going forward. They wanted to have those services in-house, basically, within their district law. As a result, since these CBO services are shared, if one district changes their arrangement with the CBO, those overall costs, they don't decrease, but rather they're allocated between all remaining district participants of that particular service. So that happened with the treasurer position. A district decided to decrease their shared use of the treasurer, and that decreased those costs, that increased those costs for the remaining districts. So that's the reason for the increase in the BOCES line for 2021. It's simply that. It's a more expensive treasurer. So, the AP costs, this particular line, business office postal services, it is captured here, is just AP and the treasurer. All costs go up a little, inflationary amount, but at 39,000 is primarily due to less districts using that treasurer service. So moving to the next area, psych services, social work, occupational education. The salary line, we are decreasing slightly, and that's mainly due to some salary breakage, as we call it, where if one person leaves or retires in the assumption on the starting salary of the person replacing them. So that's due to salary breakage, that first line there. The contractual material supplies, nothing really to note. BOCE services, which I've highlighted in the bullet point there towards the bottom, as far as which services are captured in this line. But basically, we under budgeted in this area in 1920. We made the correction going forward in 2021, and these 2021 costs are based on the final request for services that each district submitted to TST BOCES in early March. So those are good figures. Let's look at that area. I did note there's approximately about 48 students, CTE students. It's the halftime program. John can know more about that, but there's about 48 students in 1920, just to give members of the board an idea of the program. Moving to the next area here, co-curricular, pupil personnel, some of these more miscellaneous functions. Our next slide's actually titled miscellaneous, but even these ones here are a little miscellaneous. This slide represents the advisor positions, of which certified and non-certified staff fill those roles. One support staff member is also included here in the salaries in a clerical position. It also captures the collectively bargained chaperoning costs for student events, such as the musicals, the plays, dances, proms, those sorts of events, where employees supervise to ensure that everybody behaves themselves. We are projecting a decrease in these salary lines of just over 11,000 for next fiscal. Part of that has to do with some cleanup, some just account maintenance, if you will, as to which position was charged here and when. So during the 18-19 school year, the expense, if you can look in that column, it was greater as there was a position that was charged in this area. We have since moved it to its correct line. So just some things like that, not huge amounts, but there was a little account maintenance here, which accounts for us deciding to actually decrease that budget line for next year. But you can see in the 1920 projected expense, that column, the 2021 budget is in line. If you assume historical contractual increases for those type roles that the district invests in. But I just wanted to address that, why the 18-19 final expense, why that looks more expensive than, say, a year later when you would think it would be higher, since they kind of model what the salaries of employees are. Okay, miscellaneous, the final slide, as far as looking at numbers and tables are concerned. So these are some of the other expenses, expense categories not yet presented in the earlier slides or in the earlier presentations. They are truly miscellaneous. These expense categories are overseen by myself or the superintendent for the most part. Auditing, for example, this is the cost we pay to our independent auditors that come in each summer, look at our books per the comptroller's mandate, and from which an annual audit report is produced for the board to approve each fall. The expense jumped up a little bit in 1920 as we had the extra classroom activity advisors come in for a best practices retraining. We held that in September of 2019 for that service, which was provided by the same group that does our external auditing, Bonadeo Group. They came in and they just charged us a couple thousand there for that. So that's the reason for that increase in 1920. The district typically does it every 3 or 4 years. So we got that, and that's behind us now, at least for the next year. So for 2021, we're just assuming a nominal inflationary increase. Tax collector is just that. We contract with TCSD BOE to collect the district share of property taxes each year. An inflationary increase there. Legal, also self-explanatory. The district does have a few different attorneys' offices that we elicit feedback and legal advice from, depending on any number of issues that arise within a school year. Currently, we're projecting a budget decrease in this category, and that's just based on the last few years of actual expenses. That can pop up at any time, also difficult to project, but just like I said, based on the past few years' expenses, we felt that it's going to be a tight budget year all around, that there was an area we had a little room to give back, so to speak. Public information services, the final row in this slide. This includes any of the district's postage costs, but also a new for 2021, the district's contractual service with city BOE to help with the district's public relations. This was discussed in the Community Engagement Committee meeting a couple months ago. And after doing the research and speaking with city BOCES, which included them presenting to our administrative team about the scope of their services, and also speaking with other neighboring districts who also utilize this PR service from city BOCES, we decided to move forward with the lowest level of service that they provide. So city BOCES provides 3 separate levels, 3 different costs. We just went in for year 1 at the lowest service, which basically gives us the least number of days, which is 80 some days that they're willing to give us for event coverage, budget, newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, they're going to help us work on our branding in the public sphere. So that's that. Just want to get everybody on the same page with where we are. Next steps for budget 2021. And you can see all this is subject to change, as we know, COVID-19 dependent. With everything going on surrounding COVID-19, we will just have to see what guidance comes down from the state. I know our superintendent has been certainly keeping the staff and the public pretty well informed. We give a great credit for that. But from a planning perspective, it has been a moving target, so it's been difficult. But as it stands now, as of March 30 today, these are the next key dates with respect to the budget process. So the next scheduled board meeting, just by way of review, the next scheduled board meeting, April 20. That meeting, I will present the budget in its entirety in a summarized format. That is hopefully a simple format to compare 2021 figures, 2021 expenditure budget versus the 1920 expenditure budget, for example. We'll also give the board a look at the tax cap calculation. Just a couple slides we can show there. So that's an important piece. We hope that state aid figures, final state aid figures will be in at that point, and if so, any budget adjustments will be captured and presented at the April 20 meeting. And that's both expenses and revenues. As this is the final board meeting before the board will have an opportunity to vote on the 2021 expense budget. I will also be presenting the property tax report card on that April 20 board meeting. It's a required document. The board must also have an opportunity to formally approve each year. May 4th, we're scheduled to have our 2021 budget hearing. And Kimberly, I don't know, this stuff, it sounds like it
That's
changed.
actually going to stop you there, Matthew, because this has all changed since Matthew finalized this presentation late last evening and into today. So as you heard me say earlier today, the budget vote is likely going to be moved to at least June 1st. That will likely change the date of the budget hearing. And on April 20th, I don't know if on April 20th we'll be presenting to you the final budget in totality, because what I'm hearing as of today is that there will be a significant hit to school district revenue streams. I anticipate hearing more in the coming days. I feel like I'm a broken record saying that. Earlier today, I was informed by two sources at the state level that, two regional authorities had given me information that we would be looking at revenue streams from perhaps 16, 17 levels, not even last year. So Matthew and I, over the weekend, we were looking at moving forward, considering a nearly flat budget and looking at only the local tax levy and just a little bit beyond that. And today we have learned that it could be drastically different than that. So even going back to one of the last items Matthew spoke of, the public information services and contracting with city BOCES, that certainly is a nicety in our current budget proposal. However, just sitting here right now, I'm feeling like that's one item that would absolutely be removed. We will first look at maintaining all the personnel we have and make decisions from there as far away from the classroom as we possibly can. So this final slide, it's all subject to change.
Okay, because I can't see everybody, I'll scroll through. If anybody has a question for Matthew, I'll just raise your hand and I'll hopefully see you. Okay, it looks like not. All right, Matthew, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you pull that down, then we can see
Yes.
everybody?
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Stop share.
There we go. Okay, on to consent agenda, items A through E. Unless somebody has any of them they'd like pulled, just raise your hand. All right, seeing none. Look for a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E. Diane, second. Joanna. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda items A through A as presented, raise your hand. And all approve. On to new business. Acceptance of notice of annual school district meeting that was removed because that's in limbo at the moment. Abolishment of vacant position. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby abolishes the following vacant position effective March 5th, 2020. Administrative Assistant Level 1, 1 FTE. Motion? Diane, second. Randy? Questions? Discussion? All those in favor of accepting, raise your hand. Opposed? All in favor. Motion carries. Approval of the 2020-2021 school calendar. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, The Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the 2020-2021 school calendar as presented. Motion? Diane, second Randy. Discussion? All those in favor? All in favor, motion carries. Approval to increase elementary education teacher position by 1 FTE. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education for the Trumansburg Central School District hereby approves the increase of elementary education teacher position by 1 FTE in the elementary education tenure area. This position will be applied to the terms provided in the current Trumansburg Teachers Association agreement effective July 1, 2020. A motion? Randy, second. Diane, discussion, questions? All those in favor? All in favor, motion carries. Okay, moving on to board forum. I know Joanna has something she would like to read.
Thank you. I do. I think there have been a lot of thank yous today, so the board wanted to express as well their thank you. So I do have this written to send over once I'm finished. It's been 2 weeks since Trumansburg schools have been closed to students for their safety and the safety of those that work in the district in response to the first spread of COVID-19. We would like to acknowledge all those involved during these difficult times: the superintendent, administrators, faculty and staff, maintenance, food service, transportation, janitorial service, students, parents have been incredible with their preparation, actions, and response. We know that things have not been easy, but everyone has been cooperative and creative with adjusting to the current situation. Everyone is still doing their part to continue with the outstanding work of meeting the educational needs of our students. Leaders were quick to come up with a plan when the potential of a pandemic was becoming more real. Once resources were identified, action began right away in getting the necessary tools and information out to teachers, students, and parents. Although it's been a big learning curve to continue serving the community, every day there are stories of how people are getting involved to keep positive energy and high expectations in engaging our students. Students with food insecurity have been contacted and are receiving meals. Teachers have been in constant communication with students, setting up regular conference times and working on assignments. Parents have been receiving regular updates by email and postal mail. Student services for counseling are still accessible to those that need it, as well as IEP and special education evaluations. Students are connecting with each other virtually as well. Everyone is working hard during this extraordinary time. Our community is amazing, and the continuous work being put is commendable. The board is truly grateful for the hard work and dedication that everyone has put into prioritizing education for our students. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Joanna. That was beautiful.
Does anybody else have anything for board forum?
I just would like to say, since David has joined us this evening, if you could extend a huge amount of gratitude to all the drivers that have really rallied multiple times with an uncertain schedule, but yet they have worked extended hours to deliver food throughout the community, taking that risk of exposure. We're so grateful for them and for your organization, as well as Lynn's organization, and pulling that off and making it happen. So thank you so much.
No
Absolutely.
problem. I will forward on that message for sure. Everybody's happy to help where they can. So it's been pretty good. And it's been pretty flawless. We did a little hiccup, but other than that, everybody's willing to help and step in where they need to. So thank you to you guys.
All right, look for a motion to adjourn. Diane, second Randy. All those in favor of adjournment? All in favor of adjournment. Thank you all. I think this went well. Have a great night.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody.